I'm Sara Scott, and welcome to LUTV Sports Break, where we will discuss interesting topics with our panel of sports reporters. What time is it? Game time! Last week we broke down the first two episodes of The Last Dance, a documentary on Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls' 97-98 championship run. On episodes 3 and 4, Dennis Rodman, the Detroit Bad Boys, and Coach Phil Jackson's influence, plus Jordan's heroics, were on full display. Panel, what are your thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance?
I really enjoyed episodes 3 and 4. We've always talked about this grit and grime and how the NBA was a lot more physical back then. These players couldn't take it. Man, seeing that Detroit team, I almost thought it was a football team out there. They were awfully physical with Jordan, the punishment he was taking. And these weren't just like chip shots knocking them down. They were literally throwing punches at each other's elbows. It did not matter. It was a cool experience to just go ahead and look at that time of basketball. It was way different.
And you have to think, like, this entire team made up rules for one person. Like, you have to be that good in order for a team to be like, okay, let's enforce the Jordan rule right now because he's on the court. Like, that kind of brings into the legacy that Michael Jordan had at the time. And he was a younger player at the time. It wasn't like late 90s Jordan.
Yeah, and it was the fact that it was like, going back off of what you were saying, Emily, it was, hey, when he gets in the air, tackle him, hit him, knock him down. Don't let him get in the air, because they knew basically when he took flight, he was pretty much done, to be honest. Like, they were just like, if he reached the air, it was like he wasn't human. These guys back in the 90s and 80s are like, who is this guy and how is he doing what he's doing? And the physicality of him taking those beatings, it's just like they was like, he just kept getting up and kept coming at us like, we don't know what else to do. And eventually they decided as a team, to put on some muscle so they could lay down and smack down, and they actually did with it in 1991 when they swept them. So
I agree completely. I think it says a lot about Michael Jordan, the fact that he went to the extent of putting on 15 pounds of muscle, which in the documentary they talked about how that was so hard for him to do. That really shows like his competitive nature and just like his mental strength, I feel like a whole lot with that being said. Do you guys think that, like, speaking of Michael Jordan being a leader, do you guys think that this episode, to me, I feel like it really showed like how he stepped into that leadership role? He was obviously like arguably the best player at that time. Do you guys think that these two episodes really showed how he stepped into that leadership role and the things that it took to get there?
I definitely do think it showed him as a leader, especially when it came to the Dennis Rodman stuff. I mean, when Dennis Rodman came to Phil Jackson and was like, I need a vacation, he didn't ask any other coach. He brought in Michael to be like, hey, this is what he wants to do. How do you think we should proceed with this? And he was like, I don't know if Dennis will ever come back from Vegas. And like they said, they had to go get him from his bed and bring him back to practice. So I think that that speaks volumes to me, that a coach is willing to go to a player and be like, how do we fix this team in order to let him do what he needs to do to come back and be that much better and be the great basketball player that Dennis Rodman was known for being. I think Michael and Phil were really the only two people who knew how to treat Dennis Rodman as a basketball player.
And it's kind
and
of
Michael Jordan went and got him.
Yeah.
It really shows how great of a leader Michael Jordan was, because we're in a day and age where now players deal with so many mental health issues. They have their own splurges or times where you can say they cut loose like Dennis Rodman. But the leadership and accountability as a teammate to decide, I'm going to go back to Vegas and get them. When are we ever going to see something like that again? And with the personalities of players that we have now, I haven't seen anybody at least comparable to the stuff we saw last night with Dennis Rodman. So for Michael to take it upon himself to be like, I got to go get my teammate back, you just don't see that anymore. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, and another thing about his leadership that was a big change for him, it was the going from, I'm Michael Jordan, get the bleep out my way, from him in the 1991 finals, where it showed a little bit of growth when he was like, hey, Paxson is open. And they like telling him, hey, get the ball to Paxson. He's open. And he's like, He goes and he sees Paxson open. He passes it to him and he makes the shot. He's like, okay, somebody's there for me. So he starts passing the ball and realizing that, hey, maybe I can't do it all by myself all the time. I have teammates out there. And I feel like that was growth for him to kind of, swallow his ego a little bit, going from being 50, 30, like they were saying, scoring all those points a night a game, him taking a step back and realizing that I got to get my teammates involved so I can win the championship. Like that, I feel like that was a lot of growth as well as a leader as well.
For sure. And then even when he was, he was being compared to the Larry Birds and the Magic Johnsons of the world, talking about how he was a great player and he could do all these things, but he couldn't take his team to a championship. So I feel like him realizing that and like knowing his own weaknesses and being able to overcome those and be that leader, I feel like that like speaks volumes about him and his heart and his love for this game. Speaking of Dennis Rodman, how do you guys feel about his trip to Vegas? Like that is just wild to me.
Hey, they're playing sports. They're like, hey, focus in. I mean, well, all of us know pretty much. Focus. Don't slip off or whatever. Rodman could slip off and come back and be still a great player. Like Michael Jordan was saying, the drill they were running around, they're like, ain't no way Dennis could possibly be in shape right now. And then that they're running, and it's time for him to run around everybody. He just sprints off, and you can't stop. And it took him a while for them to catch up with him. So I mean, just that speaks volumes. He just come back from Vegas doing Lord knows what.
I thought it was crazy that he would be like drinking alcohol and then immediately like go into a workout. I'm like, that's intense. Not a lot of people can do that. But another thing about Dennis Rodman, I feel like I almost like felt for Dennis Rodman. I feel like you always talk about the craziness and things like that. But I feel like Dennis Rodman just wanted to feel wanted by the team. And I think when Scottie Pippen got that injury, he wasn't given that chance to feel wanted by Michael and things like that. And that just made him feel good. And then once Pippen came back, that kind of broke that need to be wanted from the team again.
I feel like it's something between a rift in his past. At the time when he said he was actually kicked out of his house and he lived on the streets for so long, basketball was kind of his escape and his getaway. So something is there. I feel like when he played for the Pistons, it was such a dynamic change from looking at Rodman on the Pistons, no tattoos, laid back, normal guy, to being in the spotlight when he got to Chicago and he started dyeing his hair and he got the piercings and stuff. Isaiah Thomas actually talked about it earlier this morning. He almost felt maybe it was a cry of help from Dennis Rodman, and then people didn't necessarily take it that way. That's how he took it, and I kind of feel it was somewhere in between that as well.
Well, if you seen to it, when he dated Madonna, he was saying Madonna kind of made him feel like, hey, express yourself. Don't be afraid to, and that's where he kind of went that route. And another thing about Michael Jordan's leadership, for him not to be knowing that it's one of those players to go and holler, you kind of just need to let him be himself. And then he just, I don't know, it's like a field thing with Dennis Rodman. Seems like a genuine guy. Like, he's not for the media. He's not putting on this show. He's just trying to be who he was. Like when he went to Michael's room and it was like, hey, you got an extra shit cigar. Michael was like, obviously that was him saying, okay, man, I'm not going to mess up no more.
And I feel like another big aspect of this documentary that is pretty cool is just the memes and all of the social media. Like, it's basically taken over social media, especially on Sundays. And I feel like there's two things that really stood out to me. First of all, there are two Isaiah Thomases that have played professional basketball, and people are constantly getting them mixed up, it looks like. That is hilarious to me. And another thing is a tweet from Donovan Mitchell, speaking of, Dennis Rodman. He said that Dennis Rodman actually created load management. And I feel like social media adds a new aspect to this documentary, especially in a time where social media is one of our only way to connect to people.
I definitely agree with that. My problem is everything Jordan is doing, why are we keep comparing and do it, Derek? I saw you say this earlier. Why are we keep comparing them to LeBron and Kobe or whatever? It frustrates me, honestly. I got frustrated last night before I even watched it. I seen a couple of comments on social media about, Jordan missed the free throw in the series. Like, hey, look, it's not about LeBron right now. It's not about Kobe. And why do we keep doing that? That kind of just frustrates me a little bit, because I feel like watching this, it's like the man is – I I don't even know what to say. I wish I was born back then to watch that live or whatever, but just watching the highlights and stuff, just like he's hanging in the air. How? That's just my opinion.
I definitely agree that social media adds another aspect, because just looking at the documentary and then you're thinking these thoughts and then you pop up online and everyone's thinking the same thing as you, it almost puts you in the moment. You get to see these moments as if you were there. And just looking at Michael and the way those guys interacted back then, as children and growing up, you're like, okay, they're basketball stars, but now we get an impersonal view and see how human they are, characteristics that we might even relate to ourselves. And I think that's the beauty of the documentary.
I think a big thing that I took from the previous 2 episodes was, especially after that Piston Chicago game where Piston just walked off and didn't shake hands or anything. I get how, like, frustrating and everything that is. I mean, you just got swept. You're the 2-time defending champions. And Mike was like, it didn't matter. You still give respect to the game. You give respect to the players. It doesn't matter. I get we all have those series where we're not happy with how we played. But we're still, I mean, like they said, the 2 previous years after the Chicago loss, they were there giving the Pistons handshakes, telling them good job, good luck in the finals, things like that. You just have to respect the game. And I think that was a big movement into basketball, is how we treat losing and winning situations and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely excited to see more of the drama unfold as the series continues. But thank you, panel, and thank you for tuning into LUTV Sports Break, where we keep you in the game for every game. To see more content from LUTV News, follow us on Facebook and like us on Twitter.